Spirits of the Ghan is, as the title denotes, based around the building of the Ghan Railway from south to north of Australia, forming literally the backbone of the nation. But it's about the specific leg that was built from Alice Springs to Darwin. This is the background of the novel, and this didn't actually happen until the early 2000s. The southern part of the railway was finished in 1929, and it just stayed at Alice Springs, didn't go any further. So that's basically the backdrop that the novel is set in, and the period in the early 2000s. I get very excited writing historically based fiction. I didn't to start with. I stuck to the KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid, and just wrote about what I knew in my very early books, which were based around show business. But then with my third book, I decided to spread my wings and I took in historical elements going back to the 19th century. The book went over a long period of time. And I found the thrill of sort of fact being stranger than fiction, proving itself time and time again. And I'd bump into something thinking, my gosh, wow, I've got to put that in. And it would start to influence the way my novels were going, the characters that I chose. So since then I've been very excited by that. It makes for a lot more hard work with the research necessary, but it's also a source of inspiration. Writing doesn't get any easier for me, I have to say, and I'm rather pleased to say that, because if it got easier, it would mean that I was probably becoming a bit formula. And I certainly do respect the fact that I write with a certain voice. I think everybody does. I think you get to, if you read a writer's works, quite a number of books in the row, you'll recognise the voice as being theirs. If somebody gave it to you without the cover and said, who do you reckon wrote this? If you'd read several of theirs, so obviously I have a voice. But my stories are very different, and the structure of my books is very different. So I like to keep setting the bar a bit higher. I think probably my skills as a writer have improved. I would like to think so. With book number 13, Spirits of the Ghan is book 13, I would like to think that I improve. It doesn't mean to say that my latest book would be people's favourites necessarily. Everybody has their favourites, which I always love to hear about. But I like to come in from a different tack, set different tests for myself, so that actually as I keep raising the bar for myself, because that makes life interesting for me, it means the books actually get that little bit harder. My character Rose is a Western Arrernte woman from the area around Hermannsburg, which is about 200 k's from Alice Springs. So she's a Central Desert person. And she was one of the stolen generation, taken from her family at the age of 6, and has quite a deal of tragedy in her early life before she meets the man that she falls in love with, who's actually a white bloke, an Irish bloke. And I loved the character of Rose. I have some Indigenous friends, and I some very close friends actually, and I don't quite know where she came from, because one of my close friends was of the stolen generation, most certainly. So I think Jussie's stories came through to me, but she didn't have a tragic life like Rose. So I don't quite know how I managed to hit upon Rose, but she's a character that I really feel a great, can't say empathy because I've never experienced what she has, but I think she speaks very loudly about a certain type of person and a sad life, except that she does end up having some great happiness in her life as well. Oh, I think like all things, progress or nature, well, no, I'd sort of opt for, look, let's keep everything as wonderfully pristine as it was, but that's not realistic. You can't stand in the way of progress. There has to be a cut-off somewhere. There are so many things, particularly environmentally, and I won't go into all of that, but that obviously one must protect. But I think it's also sticking your head in the sand to say, well, I remember when I was living in Bondi Beach, we went to a meeting, and they were all these old people. They seemed terribly old to me, and of course now I'm so old. But they actually were products of the 50s. And they wanted to keep everything. It was when they were fighting against the Olympics, holding the volleyball, etc., and stuff like that. And we mustn't have a railway built coming out at, even though the rail plan was very, very tasteful and would have solved a lot of traffic problems and a lot of terrible problems existing in Bondi. And we went to this meeting, and they were all these terrible old rednecks, straight out of the 50s, who were anti any form of change that was actually for the betterment of the suburb. So, yeah, have I sort of answered that? I'm between both areas here, aren't I? But you've got to be realistic.